Hey everyone, welcome. This is our February Women IT Pros call, and today we have Sarah Gilbert, who is an opera singer who is now in tech. All the great performing arts people here. And let's see, just to get kicked off here, we do have the chat window happening, so feel free to type in the chat window. There'll be times when you can come off mute if you would like, although we are recording this. So if you don't want to be in the recorded part, we'll also stop a little bit towards the end and give you a little bit more freedom if you'd rather talk unrecorded. We also have our group on LinkedIn, and we encourage you to jump in there and get some conversation going. And it's also a way you can find out about the Women IT Pros events that are happening here and in Asia Pacific. So upcoming, Asia Pacific is going to be in the US, February 22nd at 6 p.m., which is noon Brisbane time for them. And they'll be talking about looking forward past 2023. They didn't have a meeting in January because it was an Australian holiday, and that's where they're out of. Our next US meeting is going to be Friday, February 24th from 9 to 10 a.m. And that is in AltSpace, and it is going to be our last AltSpace meetup because AltSpace is closing on March 10th. However, March 10th is our final Women IT Pros meeting, and I'm trying to figure out if we can do some kind of a hybrid thing with a little bit of AltSpace in there so that we can kind of be in there for the last moment, because we've had some really good times there over the last several years. Since 2020, we've been running an additional meetup in AltSpace. So we do need to shift from 8 to 9 a.m. on that day for some conflicts that I have. But I actually met Victoria Grempel in AltSpace. She just came to one of our meetups there, and I found out she was a ballet dancer who was working in AI. And we just connected and we've become good friends over that. So we're trying to figure out some way that we can kind of take it back to AltSpace on that day as it rides off into the sunset there. But definitely follow us on Eventbrite, Women IT Pros, and there's a bit.ly link there that you can get to. And that's how you're going to find out everything that we are up to. So this is a grassroots open source thing that I started in 2018, but this is not saying that I speak for Microsoft. Any of our speakers here, sometimes they work for Microsoft, sometimes they're vendor for Microsoft, sometimes they have no connection with Microsoft, and they can speak, for themselves or for their employers or not, as the case may be. But I just think it's important to provide a chance for people to come together and talk about how do we get more women into the tech field and how do we support the women who are already here to want to stay in the tech field. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, you can either come off mute and do a verbal introduction that'll be on the recording, or if you'd rather, just type something off in the chat window here. And I'll go ahead and throw mine into the chat window. And there are also some links to the slides there. Oops, no, that's not the... Oh, I've got something in here. No, I'll post mine in a minute. But definitely tell us what you're doing, where you are on social media so that we can connect with each other. Maybe the area that you live in. I'm in the Seattle area here, but I know we get people from all over the world. And if you're going to any events in 2023, it's always good to reach out. You can even put it on Twitter or LinkedIn, hashtag WomenITpros, or put it in our Women IT Pros group, and find the other women who are going to that group. One of the best things that you can do is if you're going to be going to an in-person event, try to set up something, and we can help you with this, to tag, to get the women together on the first day or, like early on in the conference, to do a group photo. And that was something that we learned from Women in SharePoint. It's a great way to kind of bring women together to meet each other. And then we find that, throughout the rest of the conference, women have kind of other women to hang out with. So definitely would love to see more of that going on. Definitely love to see my slides moving forward. There we go. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Sarah Gilbert, who is a community manager for the public sector. So, government type things here for a tech community. And opera singer, Goth, and Neurodivergent. I love bringing all the diverse kind of people in here and diverse backgrounds, and lover of cats and awesomely bad movies. So know, Sarah, at some point you're going to have to tell us at least one of the awesome bad movies that is your favorite. Doesn't have to be right now.
Oh, yeah, I have quite a few. Actually, I can name one of them right now. It's this really ridiculous movie. It's made to make fun of kung fu movies, and it's called Kung Pao. I don't know if anybody remembers it. It was literally a movie that was made to be bad, and I think like what they did with the movie is like they used like different cuts from old like kung fu movies and like just integrated it and like did weird green screen things. It's awesomely bad. Um, I don't know. I love watching awesomely bad movies just because it's something that you can kind of like enjoy with your friends. I often have bad movie nights where, people get together and you can chat over it because it's not a serious thing. It's you can just look at and marvel at how ridiculous it is. So that's why I have a love of bad movies.
Mystery Science
Um,
Theater.
Exactly, so you can heckle it as well. Uh, I will bring up my slide here. Let me see. Let me know if it comes through.
It is in the process. Yes.
All right, perfect. I haven't shared before like this. So, hello, I am Sarah Gilbert. So, I didn't include this in the slides. A little bit of background. I am an opera singer. I have a bachelor's and a master's in music. I went to undergrad at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is in the only foresty mountain range in Arizona. Yes, there is one, and that's where it is. And it's a very like the way I would describe Flagstaff, it's very it's some of the cleanest air in the United States. It's a high elevation, so it was a good place to train. It helps strengthen your lungs. Very like hippie town, I guess. Very granola. It's often compared, I hear it to Austin, Texas as well. Like it's just very, yeah, very that. And then for grad school, I went to the New England Conservatory of Music. So after those two institutions, I was an opera singer for about 8 years and, loved my career. I traveled around a lot and I got to a point where I kind of needed to put in roots and also, I wanted to stay mostly in the United States. I'd traveled around enough, and so I was looking for jobs that could work for me. And actually, I started, believe it or not, at GoDaddy. And this was back in the day when, so they don't have this requirement anymore. I don't think they have for a long time, and I think other companies used to as well. Do you remember when they would put out job postings and sometimes they'd say like, bachelor's in like, like computer required or like technology required, something like you had to have like that degree as a background. And originally GoDaddy had that posting of like, you had to have like this back, but I submitted my resume and they interviewed me anyways, and I still will remember this. Um, I went in for my interview. It was really good. They had me do a couple of tests on the computer and I passed them. And some of them were like testing your executive functioning skills and your technical skills and your critical thinking, things like that. And so then when I got to the point where I was talking to the recruiter, which I'm still friends with to this day, his name is Thomas Barnella. I remember like he was saying like, no, this is great. Like, the job is yours if you want it. And I remember I broke down for a minute going, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I just want you to know, like my degree is not in technology, it's in music, but like I'll do a really good job. And I remember he was like, huh. And he like looked at the rec and he was like, that's not still supposed to be there. But even if it was, like you passed the tests and you musicians actually tend to be really good at this. So don't worry about it. And he was right. Like I actually throughout my tech career have met a lot of people that are musicians or just in the arts too. And originally when I was like going through my tech career, that's why I started talking about this. I like tried to hide my music background because I didn't think it was relevant. Or that they wouldn't care or that it would kind of like hinder me. But actually when I started to talk more about my unconventional background, it actually helped me more. Because for one, when you have an unconventional background, it makes you stand out. people get curious about it. And also I've found that it adds, whenever you're on a team where there's just like people from a variety of backgrounds, it adds so much more to the team collaboration because people are coming from, they have different ideas and different valuable things to contribute. So this is me kind of talking a little bit about how like I integrated that into my career. Um, and so when I was thinking about, I had gotten to a point where, yes, I started talking about more about like my musical background. Um, and then I had to think about how I could integrate that more into my resume and also into interviews, because I couldn't just sit here and say like, interviewing for a technical position and be like, I performed on stage. That doesn't mean anything to them. But what did mean something to a lot of these recruiters or job posters is maybe how my performance skills could transfer into the position that I was interviewing for. There's a lot of skills that we can pull from our artistic backgrounds that are actually shared with technical skills. You just have to figure out how to reposition them, redefine them, or how they would fit in the niche that you're looking at. So, as an example, there is a device in music and music theory called pivot chords. And if for anybody that hasn't used this device or hasn't taken music theory, a pivot chord is a way to get smoothly between two keys. And it's the same key. So it's something that exists in both keys, and you use that to be able to modulate to different keys. A lot of people do this in different songs or however they like, want to, if they're going from an A key to like a, key in C major, like they find the key that is shared and then they kind of pivot off of that. To change a key by using a pivot chord means that we're using one particular chord and redefining that function within a new key. So one chord could be tonic in one key. This is very music theory, but then also could be dominant in another. And you would need to figure out how to use that within those two keys and how to translate. And I thought about this concept applying to your work skills. And so I came up with the term pivot skills. The skills that you have in music, in the arts, that can exist in both careers and can help you with the smooth transition. Your page in your resume doesn't need to be blank, and you don't and shouldn't need to leave out your previous career just because it doesn't directly apply. So you can redefine their function, as it were. So just to give you a few examples here, and I even have further notes that I can talk about more. So there's just a little snippet that I found, and I was able to like verify this by looking it up as well. There are numerous studies that have shown that individuals with musical training have a greater aptitude for executive functioning skills. So a couple of them: adaptable thinking. We can be flexible in our projects and adapt to change or interruption. As an opera singer myself, there have been numerous times that I've been in a show that the musical director decided that they wanted the piece to be done in English instead of the original German. So we'd have to, yes, so we'd have to like switch back into that. There's been times where they tell us like, hey, we're actually going to take these two numbers, like, this actually goes in Act 3 and this goes in Act 4, but we're going to take these two and just swap them. Or a role has changed. I was even part of a show where the day before we were set to perform, one of the main people just quit, and we had to adapt with the understudy. So it's you learn to become very quick to adapt to any type of change that is happening, whether or not it's in the performance before it. And that same adaptability can apply to projects that are ongoing or even your job. Like I thrive in an environment that has constant change. And to me, it doesn't bother me or even like knock me off guard because I'm so used to it that like when people throw a small change at me and they think it's going to be the end of the world, I'm like, oh, this is nothing. Like, I've had weird changes happen, like in an orchestra when I'm performing in front of hundreds of people. You're telling me to make one small tweak, I'm going to be okay. Um, Another skill would be multitasking and taking on complex projects. So, as an opera singer, a lot of people don't know what goes into role preparation. You not only have to, look at the music and learn the music, you're learning the language. In undergrad, we had to take a year of German, Italian, and French. So I multilingual in a sense. Not fluent anymore. I used to be in Italian. Um, but you have to not only learn the music, you have to learn the language, you have to translate it. A lot of times the languages that you are singing in opera are like antiquated languages. um, you have to make sure you're getting your musical timing right, you have to make sure you're getting your blocking, and oftentimes you're dancing as well. So it's all of these things just kind of coming together at you, and it is complex and there is so much going on, and you have usually like 5 different people telling you what to do, from the musical director to the conductor to the stage director. Like, it's all of it is coming at you at once. You're used to just complete and utter chaos, and you have to put that together into something that is this beautiful creation of art. And because of that, that's why, to me, I actually thrive when there are multiple projects going on at once. I, I don't need to only do one thing at a time or do one thing slowly. I can take on so much at once, and it actually like helps with my ADHD too, as it were. But as a musician, especially as an operatic run, you have to take on all of these things. There isn't a choice of like, oh, I can only focus on this one thing right now. It's like, nope, you're doing 5 things. So that has greatly helped my technical career because I tend to never be shaken by this type of thing. And the other is focus. And I say focus as in, you know, the repetitiveness of the tasks that you're taking on. Oftentimes, when you are learning an opera, you are taking on these this huge complex thing. And opera is like a huge book, a huge volume that you get, and you're learning each piece by piece, and you're taking on these smaller chunks or tasks, as it were, each day consistently towards a bigger goal. And usually rehearsals for operas tend to go on for months. I think the smallest turnaround time I've had for an opera was maybe a month, but it was a very short opera, like a couple of acts. But usually it's a couple of months that you're trying to like get everything together. Another skill that I haven't listed here would be because I took additional notes as well. Collaboration is another big one. You're often thrown with a bunch of different people at different times. The musicians you're working with, the other performers, different directors, different conductors, and you have to get good at feeling out and navigating the office politics, as it were. So we tend to be good, well, great collaborators, in my opinion, because of that. We are often thrown in with different people all of the time. So those would be some of like those pivot skills, and I would take those and apply them to my resumes, as well as be able to talk to them within interviews. And I feel like that's been a monumental change in my career transition because I kept finding more and more people like me. Uh, and also because it helps you to stick out to recruiters and to people that are posting jobs because it's a unique position and you offer unique ideas to it as well. Oftentimes, a lot of the teams I've worked with have said like, it can be great being in meetings with you or other people that are from those types of backgrounds because you often come in with ideas or perspectives I never thought of. Uh, and to me, that's a good thing. We all shouldn't think the same, and we all shouldn't come from the same background. You need that variety. Um, so that's kind of how I would use that to apply to resumes, as well as like when you're interviewing. Um, I will often get asked like, why the transition, and I'll talk a little bit about like why I wanted to go into tech originally, but then also why it translates to something that I thrive in, which is, especially with community management, you're not just doing one thing. It's opera and music itself is a community. So this career is something that I fit into easily and something that I love as well, because you are constantly cultivating the community around you in opera and music. You're growing, you're networking, you're getting to know all of these other artists and, looking at each other's work and helping to contribute to that, and helping it to grow something greater. And that's what I'm doing in my career now. So that it's been something I've very much come to love, especially the public sector. They're uh, a great group of people, and the community that I have now, originally when I started my job here, was I think under 500 people originally for its members, and it's now currently almost 7,000. So it's been a great change. And that is all I have for my slides currently. So I can open it up for questions or for any types of feedback or discussion here as we have it open.
Well, and I'll let our guests think if you have any questions. In the meantime, just one of the things that, since you were just talking about the public sector, and I imagine they've got to be a great group of people to to do the work that they do when you're not going to be getting rich or famous and, well,
Yeah.
maybe, elected office, but otherwise. So can you talk a little bit more about the community and the community building that you've done?
Oh, within public sector. Yes.
Well, and kind of, like bringing people together around technology. Just, how do you see that um, kind of playing in with your past skills, like these pivot skills that you've talked about?
Yeah, so with like collaboration, you're often one of the things that I did apply when I was like growing the community. To quote The Little Mermaid, you go where the people are. So often, when you're in opera, like you're seeking out other artists and opportunities um, in your environment, and those can often be in different places, just depending on where you are. So, like for example, in Boston, they had like different groups that met in art institutions, or there was like a random Facebook group that was made just for performing artists there. And you often have to go and seek out these niche places to meet those people and to network, and then to keep coming together for different projects. And that's the only way that you're going to be able to integrate yourself into that community. You can't just like wait and be like, they're just going to come find me. It doesn't work like that. And often to get a community to accept you, you need to be part of it. You can't just sit here and be passive. And that is certainly a way that musicians work. You have to go and participate. Like people are going to want to work with you if you're good to work with, and if you put yourself out there. No one's going to find. I think I have yet to have somebody find me off the street and be like, you look like an opera singer. Like, that doesn't happen. And so I applied that same tactic to building the community for public sector. When I started out, I was just kind of looking originally at what other marketing and community management people were doing. And I realized a lot of them were doing the same thing, which had some success, but I didn't think that that would apply to me. And instead, I kind of went back to the drawing board and I was like, okay, instead of just like posting a few times on Twitter, or I think somebody even said Facebook, which okay. I was like, let me research where the people actually are, specifically for public sector. I want to know where public sector IT people are and where they're already participating versus me just trying to like put out information and just hoping that they're going to come back. And so when I was researching all of the different platforms that people could be on, I found that specifically for government IT people, there was uh there was a lot of activity around Reddit and Discord, surprisingly, and then also LinkedIn. So instead of doing what a lot of other like former marketing people, before had done, I kind of wiped that clean and developed like a whole new like method because of where my people was different. And so instead I started participating more in the GovIT Reddit community, not just like, and also you have to participate and integrate and give them useful information. So it's not just going onto Reddit and spamming with links. That'll just get you kicked off or it will get your stuff deleted. It's actually participating in the conversations, seeing what it is they're like, what are subjects that are coming up all the time, and trying to offer up things that they need. So ways that I did help to bring part of the community together. You know, I started participating. I always let members of the community know who I was. I never like wanted to like sneak attack it and be like, oh, I'm really working. I've been working for Microsoft all along. I upfront was like, hey, I'm the new community manager for public sector. I want to understand what you guys are looking for. I also want to understand what's missing and how I can get questions answered for you. Because ultimately the community is for those people. Like, yes, I guess, you know, it's for me in the sense that like it helps me with my job, but ultimately it's for them. And that was what helped the community to grow, is to give them information that they needed to be an active participant. And because I also was technical, I understood the things that they were talking about. Uh, and also learning all of the acronyms. Like when you work in public sector, you're kind of acronymed to death. So you have to, you know, like CMMC, HIPAA, like all of that. So it was a lot to learn too. And I think what also made it better in the community was being open to learn. Like I think I never, because I was authentic about it, I never tried to fake my way through it. So I'd let them know, this is what I do know. This other thing you're talking about, I'm not so sure about. Please educate me on it. Tell me what, you know, even what within the Microsoft documentation you think that they get wrong. I'm here to listen to you. I'm not here just to be a talking head. And I feel like being authentic and talking, actually just talking to your community like they're the awesome real people they are, uh, that helps to break down those walls as well. I think because they are so used to like people giving the PR speak or not even getting through to a real person. So when they do find somebody that empathizes, shows they understand, as well as, you know, does help to get some of their questions answered the best way possible, that helps to build trust within that community. And when you build trust within the community members, that's when your community starts to grow.
Yeah, we were talking in the chat, you know, authentic communication, it's so important, and especially with social media, because I think people can tell, you know, have you heard the term astroturfing? Like
No.
fake grassroots. When you get, you know, the people who are out there, you know, trying to get, you know, bots or people just to go and, you know, try to hype up amplification, um,
Mm,
you know, without really being part of that community.
yeah. Yeah. Or like they don't, I've seen it before where like they're not really, it's very obvious they're not sure what they're talking about and they're just injecting buzzwords
Yeah,
into it.
yeah. Or enough about you. Let's talk about me.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think when I first started participating in the public sector communities that are on Reddit, I didn't say much about myself really until like later on because a lot of it was me asking like some in some cases it was just asking clarifying questions or even just understanding what wasn't working. So I remember responding to some like questions or input on there just being like, "Oh, why don't you use this thing? Oh, could you help me understand like why this doesn't work for this thing you're talking about because I'm not really getting that." And that's actually given like some valuable feedback to our team for public sector, whether or not it be like talking to the developers, the product managers, or project managers, because it helps them to, you know, an online community helps both sides because it also helps anybody on the inside of Microsoft and public sector to see what their customer base is thinking, what they're doing, um, and also where some of those roadblocks are versus people having to guess or being like, well, they respond better when we put a picture with our tweet or something like that. It's like, no, they want these real problems solved. And I think that's what matters more than just how pretty is the video that you put together. So
Yeah. Or the engineers are like, oh, but it's going to be doing all of these things. Like, yeah, but you didn't
mhm.
need that.
Exactly, like, oh, it's going to be doing this thing. Okay, cool. Does it fulfill the CMMC requirements? And if you don't know, then maybe you should. Like
Yeah.
that, I think that was also like what I took on as well, is becoming a voice for the customer within some of these other meetings that I get in on with like product managers or with engineers. You know, I will often be in these meetings, either being the person that's asking, you know, is this in GCC high or DoD, or saying like, hey, the customers are seeing this right now, why? You know, or hey, this is on. Even in some cases, I've just been like, hey, this specific topic is being talked about a lot online, y'all might want to address it sometime. And just putting that out there too. It's nice to be a voice like both ways. So even like the other direction, if I see a conversation happening in either like my community directly or Reddit or Discord, you know, and they're not understanding how to use something, or they're saying like this product doesn't fulfill this, you know, this feature need because it won't do X, Y, and Z, I can easily be like, actually it does, but this thing needs to be enabled, and I can link to, you know, a piece of documentation or a blog that we've put on. So it's also a way to help with that communication too.
And so let's talk about, you're doing a lot of translation here because, you're
Mhm.
taking the government stuff and you're translating, what the customers need and the technical requirements, which, they may or may not be stating clearly. And then you're also
Mhm.
dealing with, the engineers who have, very technical mindset, and you're trying to, get those concepts. And then you're also, as I realize, you're translating government speak and government processes, because it is a culture unto itself, and
It
often a
is.
language unto itself, and trying to help engineers understand that so that they can better engineer for it. So so how do you, first of all, how do you get your technical skills to the point where you feel like, you're comfortable in all of that?
It's been a process. And a lot of that was just like either researching, or sometimes I would just ask one of the engineers like, hey, could you explain this further to me? Um, you know, at first when you start out in this, sometimes you are a little bit afraid to ask for further clarification because, you know, you're worried people will think you're stupid or whatnot. But it's, especially for government IT, it's so complex. There's so many things that people don't think about, or processes or requirements they're not thinking about, because yes, you can use it like this thing in commercial, but it doesn't satisfy CMMC requirements, or, you know, will this satisfy, you know, NIST insert number here, you know, or like how is the data stored, you know, is the data like, is it sovereign, like do we know? um and I kind of just started keeping a bunch of different notes everywhere, mostly in OneNote, as I went along, to either remind myself or to like make sure that I could integrate that into my language. A lot of it was observing the language of that the Gov IT people were using around me, as well as that of the engineers, so that I could be able to speak their language back to them.
Mhm.
And that was work. And some of that was also getting to know these people. I think there's something to be said for building a personal connection. You know, like if you like somebody more, or if you understand them more, you're going to be more willing to work with them, versus just only having interactions with somebody being like, hey, here's a question, they answer, and then you say thank you, and that's it. You don't ask how their day is. You don't know what their middle name is, like nothing. When the personal element is gone, I think something's very, very much missing from that connection. Like networking isn't, I don't network to get ahead. I network to just build those connections because it's important. Building up your own community is just as important for your career. And I can't remember who said this, but isn't it, people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah, they'll forget what you
And
said, or they'll forget the facts, but they never forget
yeah,
the feelings.
exactly. Yeah, they're never going to forget how you made them feel. So like regardless of like the things you said or maybe even the things you did, I think it's important to have people feel valued within your, within your job, your career, and even just within your community. And that's another reason why I think our community has grown, is because I let my members know that they are valued. Uh, they're valued for their time, they're valued for their participation and what they give into the community too. And that speaks a lot to each side, actually. So when you care about what you do, it shows.
Yeah. Well, and how are you doing this with everybody remote? I mean, I don't know if you were on site previously, but definitely with government, I imagine you're working with people all over the
Mhm.
country. And how how can you keep building those connection when it's either just, sometimes it's just text, or even internally, I'm sure you have teams, but it's harder when you can't like stalk somebody at the coffee machine.
This is true. So I mean, my team was always mostly remote, so I adapted well. We went on site like every now and then, and we were in person for an Ignite, and I do love in-person events when I can get to them, so I try to kind of do a hybrid approach when possible. So even like, the last Ignite that we were at, which was a bit ago, I was game for meeting people. Like I was meeting people left and right. I'm definitely an extrovert, so I love doing that. And then besides that, trying to attend meetings and even just outside events too. So like even just besides the internal Microsoft events that I have attended, I bookmark outside events. I say outside, just anything not Microsoft, to attend virtually when I can. I mean, obviously I can't attend them all. I can't always participate, but even if it's just something as simple as 2 or 3 a month, and it's just like me listening or like, participating in a Teams chat, that counts. So for example, the one of the Discord channels that I participate on, they'll do like I think they call it like a drink and chat. And it's just on the Discord, and every now and then I will pop in and just see all of them. Or uh they organized, the GovIT people in that Discord organized a Secret Santa, and I participated in that as well. I think a few of the other Microsoft Gov people participated. So that was the other thing that I loved, is like bringing in that participation both ways. So like while we have like our public sector online community, we also participate in some of the outside ones too. So for example, like Richard Wakeman, who's one of my authors, he participates in the Discord, and I got a few other people to do that as well. So we try to participate both ways whenever we can, and I think that has also helped to like grow that. And it also brings people over to you, because if somebody's going to help like come and participate in your thing, in your event, or help promote you, I've gone on to other podcasts and interview shows as well. um that's, you help each other out. It's not, ultimately you have to think about it, it's not a competition, it's a collaboration. And maybe that's from my operatic background. Like, most people think that there's like a diva or like one star or whatnot, but usually a lot of operas, they have like 5 main characters, and it's all just a big collaboration. No one person carries the show. It's everybody. Like you're nothing if you're doing your show without your orchestra. You're nothing without your director. You are nothing without your dancers. Everybody is just as important to make that come together. And that's how I apply it to community too. No one person is like centralized to that. It's everybody coming together collaboratively and helping each other. So like, of course, I want people to like come and participate in my events, but I'm also going to do that for them. And that's also another way to help build that up.
I love that. And I love seeing, how clearly these things do map. Yeah, and how you were talking about that you realized that, yeah, it's not something to hide. And I kind of felt the same way about my theater background. Not so that I was hiding it, but I didn't
Yeah.
need to bring it up because I felt like I kind of like snuck in here until I realized, no, this actually makes me more valuable here. And you're giving
Right.
some really concrete ways of why these skills are valuable in tech.
Exactly. And I mean, like, before people would ask me, like, well, how are you like better than this person that like did major in like, in tech or has like these computer skills they learned in school, which by the way, even if you are learning these computer skills like early on in school, by the time you graduate, they're already obsolete. Just saying. So,
True.
and also, just because you did something in one background for a really long time doesn't mean that you can't excel in another career. And I still don't say, many people try to say like they're former this, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a former opera singer. I am an opera singer. I just don't do it as a main career anymore, but I still am one and I'm proud of it. And I just got to a point, yeah, where I didn't want to hide it anymore. The things that make us unique, um, are what can make you great in your career. And also, if you think about it, there's a lot of musicians that are geniuses. Brian May from Queen is an astrophysicist.
Yeah.
So like there is no limit to these things that you can do. It's just where your mind can do multiple things at once. You can do multiple things at once. And I think that we shouldn't limit ourselves or pigeonhole ourselves. We are, we're multifaceted human beings. So why can't our career be multifaceted too?
Well, and one of the things that if I'm talking to young women who are thinking about careers in tech, I'll talk about, the flexibility in here is fantastic because, okay, for one thing, you want to have kids, it's a lot easier for me to take off,
Oh yeah.
when my daughter was young, I could take off and do things. But also, like you said, you meet a lot of musicians, and I've met a lot of musicians and actors and artists in tech who are able to pursue their art as, maybe not necessarily, full time, but they don't have to support themselves with it. They get the money and the insurance from the job, and then they can still be gigging, Friday and Saturday every night, and they can do the kind of music that they want to do because they don't have to worry about paying the bills with it.
Exactly. It's freeing in a way too, because
Hmm.
you're not feeling as much pressure in either direction. And thinking about it too, like I was watching like a TED Talk a couple of days ago. I believe it's Adam Grant who talked about like how like there was not like a depression. Well, it was like a form of depression over the pandemic, and it was more like a form of languishing. And he had talked about like how the antidote to that was getting in a state of flow over and over again. And you didn't necessarily need to like be productive in a way that like you made something great every time, but just to where you had like different things to focus on that brought you joy that you could, you know, show yourself like results with, like even
Breaking
like a,
bread. Everybody was
exactly.
baking bread.
Yeah, baking bread, or like I've been like I'm not the best at it. My mom and my sisters are like the artists on paper, but I've just been doing random watercolors just because it's something else to like, tune my mind into. So I've watercolor jellyfish are very easy to paint, so I've just painted a lot of jellyfish. And that has made me happy on top of like doing music too. So even just having like those different projects that you can get fully in a state of flow, immerse yourself in, enjoy yourself, and then have an end product that you can see that actually helps like your happiness and keeps you from languishing as well. So
Yeah.
it's another helpful thing to your career.
And we were talking about in the chat, I am learning, but the industry moves faster. It's like, yes, it does. And I think, that's another piece of tech is, I
Hmm.
tell people if you like to code, if you try coding, go learn to code. Coding is awesome,
Hmm.
because it's just going to be another skill set for you out there. But there's so much of technology where you're not going to learn it in a classroom,
No.
even in some of the coding sense, you're really going to learn it on the job. And, so having the ability to learn and to skill up really quickly and the willingness to be dumb for a while until you get
Yeah.
to a point where you're feeling competent in it.
And
is important.
you're bringing up a good point, because like it's practical. Like I think there's a lot to be said for practical application, because I have a bachelor's and a master's in music. I did like performances and practiced in front of a class and whatnot. And I can tell you that performing in front of a small class and practicing is vastly different than performing on a stage with an orchestra. It is very different. And I think there's a lot to be said for people that have immersed themselves in practical application, because even with all of like my, with my 2 degrees and whatnot, a lot of what they heavily weighed for when they would hire a performer would be experience. They want to see how you interact on a stage. You can learn everything, but when it comes to the task, they want to see how you can perform that task. And that's why I like to just kind of get my hands dirty and just immerse myself in it, because in some cases it's the only way you're going to fully learn and bring your experience together. And so you've got to just learn to dive in and make mistakes. Like that's another thing that I was taught to me as a performer is, yeah, you're going to make mistakes, or you're going to find what works for you. It's going to be different. Um, and you have to learn to like not ignore the mistake, but like you have to learn to accept that the mistake happened. Okay, what can I do differently? And then move on. And I think that's a valuable skill in itself too, because like you're constantly adapting. So like, okay, that didn't work. Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and do this other thing. I can't sit here and wallow. Like,
Yep.
gotta move on. Especially if it's like mid-performance, what are you gonna do?
Well,
So,
and I had a choir director who would say, all the time, rule number one was watch the conductor. Rule number
mhm.
two was there are no mistakes, only great recoveries. And rule number three was watch the conductor.
Yes,
And so
exactly.
I actually had her on. So she's a former nun who now has worked at Microsoft for many years, and
Yeah, that's right.
is a techie. And so she was on. We did an episode called My Favorite Mistake, and
Hmm.
we talked about that. And it's just it's a mantra that helped me both in my art and also in my work about, yeah, nobody cares if you land on your ass on the ice. Well, okay, get up again. Now, if you're in the Olympics, of course, that's going to hurt. But, if you're just out there, skating,
Hmm.
it's like people will love you even more if you fall down and get back up again and finish strong.
Exactly. Like actually, come to think of it, yeah, that reminds me of like it's a weird one-off story, but like so there was like a competition within my undergrad where you could win additional scholarships. And I actually won a scholarship, and I won a scholarship and I made a mistake in the song I was performing. Um it was a weird like stage setup anyways, and there was somebody that like I think it was, I don't know if it was just like somebody that was kind of like drunk or whatnot. Like, so there was a performance hall that we were doing you go on and you sing your aria, and that's like part of your thing for the scholarship audition. And like somebody that was drunk, like had broken into the stage and like started wandering around. And some, like, this was during when I was singing. And so then like somebody like came and like took her off. And during that, I guess, because like I was somewhat distracted and still trying to like get into it, like there was a part of my song that I was flat. Um, and I ended strong, and I knew like things were kind of off, because I was just like, why is this person walking around the theater being belligerent? I kept going. Um, and same thing, like I knew something was off. I got back on track, and I finished strong, and I won that competition. And I remember asking one of the judges, I was just like, yeah, I know I kind of got off track there. So like, and this is great that I like won, like, like what, just because I was curious, like, what made you still like want to like, push me through to the next round, even though like this thing had happened. And I just remember her being like, well, your recovery was great. And she was just like, and your voice and everything else about the performance was good enough. I just forgave you for it. And like, and that the same can apply to like any types of like mistakes you make along the way in your career. Like, as long as you don't wallow and like fixate on it, uh, people are gonna understand like, yes, the mistake happened, but like you recovered and you just kind of like And that's why I got, like, I guess the good points was because I kind of like, okay, this drunk person's coming in and doing things, what they're gone now, and I just recovered and moved on instead of like,
Yes.
many times performers may like even stop or like
Yeah.
start over again, which to me that's worse. I would rather
Yes.
keep going than starting all over again. No, thank
Yeah.
you. So I
Yeah.
did. And also, not to mention, this is like coming from a very unconventional, different background. In that competition, a lot of times, opera singers for certain competitions, especially women, this is a weird bias, will pick an aria that's like happy or that is, I guess, like I could say the words like stereotypically done, like, oh, this is a type of aria that's won before in the past because it does XYZ thing. But it's also an aria that people keep hearing over and over again. So within this competition, a lot of people were like singing the same song over and over again, or like people had heard it. And the song that I picked was vastly different, and it's just because I loved how it sounded and I loved the composition of it. So like a lot of other people had like a weird happy song or like a comedic song, and mine for that competition that I actually won was it was called Sur les Lagunes by it's from Berlioz's song set called Nuit d'été, and it's literally about the beginning phrase of it. It was in French too, which is my worst language. And the beginning of it literally is my true love is dead and she's going to go into the ocean. And it was like this weird like minor key and whatnot, and I liked it because of like how it showcased the range and how dramatic it was. And I realized when I was performing it in the competition, I'm like, this is nothing like anybody else is doing. And I remember thinking like, they're gonna hate this. and and it was, that applies to my career even now. Like it ended up being the opposite because the judges were like, no, you didn't do things that everybody else did, and it was freaking refreshing. So that was, and that can apply to also like your career when you do come from an unconventional background. They've already seen everybody with like the regular, tech schooling and whatnot. You're going to be something refreshing for them and something they're going to remember, even if you do make a mistake.
Um, any other questions? Anything from our guests here? Come off mute.
I just wanted to say thank you for this amazing conversation. I just have had, I don't know, I've had such a really varied journey in the arts, and I'm keep scratching my head trying to figure out how I can make the link with that and with tech. And you just made everything very clear. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
And I think maybe what I'll do is like I'll refine my deck a little bit more. I used to give this all the time as, I say, a TED Talk, but not actual, like I didn't go on TED,
Okay.
but like TED Talk version. And maybe I'll put that out online because I did at one time have like a full chart, but this was like years ago, so I might just need to like, it was just like a table of like, how I said it in music versus how I said it in tech. So maybe I will refine that a bit and I can put that out online as well.
I would love that. And please hashtag it WomenITpros, because I would like to see more people doing this kind of thing and sharing this information and using that as a way to help people find each
Oh
other.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like when I first gave this talk, I actually met with somebody like afterwards that she wasn't a musician, but she was in like art, like paper.
Fine arts.
Yeah, like those types of arts, and then also like worked a little bit as like a curator. And because of that, like she started mapping out her skills differently, and she now works for Amazon.
There you
So
go.
you can transition that over, and that's what she did, is like she talked about how her skills in art could transition to this career at Amazon, and they were like, yeah, and they took her on. So that it can happen, quickly. Like you don't need to hold your, I think like a lot of people will like hold themselves back and be like, well, I have to learn XYZ thing, or I have to get this degree, and you don't. So
yeah. Find your bliss, and then everything's going to follow.
yeah, exactly. So, Mary, you don't need to kick the door in necessarily, but maybe you just need to sing through it.
And that is awesome. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Well, we got to wrap, but Sarah, thank you so much. And if you're watching this recording, we'll have Sarah's social media link, so follow her so you can see the chart, and we'll encourage you to get that out there. Follow Women IT Pros on Eventbrite, and also LinkedIn. Join our group. Come hang out with us because we want to help you succeed. If you know somebody who is thinking about a career transition, throw them our way. We want to help. We're here to network. We're here to support each other. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.